Hi, everybody. So we're going to come back now and get started on the second portion of our job and internship search crash course. My name is Kathy Kim Greenberg. I'm a career engagement educator at the UCLA Career Center. Thank you so much for being here with us today. For those of you who are just joining us now, please fill out the quick survey that you see on your screen or in the chat box. It's just going to help us collect that vital information about attendance data, but it also gives us an opportunity to email you the presentation slides for all three of these presentations to you afterward, as well as gives you a chance to enter into a raffle for a $25 Amazon gift card. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Just to reiterate some of the house rules, right? If you have any questions during this time, please feel free to enter them into the Q&A section, and one of my colleagues will answer it for you. At the end, we will have a live Q&A where you can throw some questions in, and I'll answer them live. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So the agenda for today, right now, we're going to be doing the virtual networking and LinkedIn presentation. Oop, don't mind the times there. It's going to go until 4 o'clock, and then from 4 to 5, we're going to be doing successful interviewing strategies. So what is this networking thing that we all hear about all the time, right? I think it's kind of this nebulous term that people throw around and tell you that you need, but it's kind of hard to pinpoint what it actually means, right? And what I really want to emphasize here is that networking is just a lot more than what we typically conceptualize it as, right? It's more than just a formal event. We do it all day, every day. It's really just the natural process of you communicating with others and building relationships with people in your life. Networking really involves more than just that hyper-professional setting, right? It involves using personal, professional, or academic contacts to learn more about different fields and help you achieve your career goals. It's really going to help you not only learn more about different career options that you have available to you, but it will also give you the opportunity to start building relationships that might prove fruitful later. According to a 2017 global survey done by LinkedIn, 70% of professionals who responded said that they were hired at a company where they had a connection. 80% of professionals consider networking to be important to career success, and 35% of the people who responded said that a casual conversation on LinkedIn messaging led to a new opportunity. And I really can't emphasize this enough. Even in my own personal life, I've seen this happen, right? Not just anecdotally from what others have told me, but in my own personal experience. So here I was many moons ago, I'm about to graduate from my master's program, and I was feeling a little nervous, because I had applied to lots of different job opportunities and gotten rejected, and I was getting very discouraged. And so what I did was I reached out to a colleague and asked her if she knew anybody that she could connect me with in the field of career services, which was the field that I was looking to get into. And she actually was able to connect me with the director of a career center at another university. And what was supposed to be just this quick, casual 20-minute conversation, turned into this 2-hour-long discussion where we really connected and kind of clicked. And it's not like she whipped a job out of her back pocket and was like, here you go. Like, we all wish that would happen, but that wasn't the case. But at the same time, 2 months down the line, when one of her staff members left, I was the first person that she thought of, right? Because I had built this relationship with her, because she knew who I was, she knew my qualifications. And so I was really able to leverage that relationship, when the time came. So it's really important to understand what networking is and understand that it's broader than this typical conception that we have around networking events, right? So, the first step to really building your network is to think about who you already have in your proximity, right? You already have a network from which to build. And I think that's so important to remember. Your peers, right? The people around you, your classmates, those are the leaders of tomorrow, right? And so you never know who's going to end up in what position and what relationships are going to become fruitful later down the line. Your family, your friends, your professors, UCLA alumni, employers, recruiters, mentors, counselors, coaches, even us, right? All of the people that are in your UCLA ecosystem, or perhaps people you know through work or through family. These are all people that you can network with and be intentional with learning from. So this is really where LinkedIn comes in, right? LinkedIn is a professional networking social media platform that really helps you connect with people. You can connect, right, or friend people you know and build new relationships as well. LinkedIn is also going to give you the opportunity to research career paths, evaluate your options, and apply for jobs. You can also find a mentor who's going to give you that professional advice, right? That inside scoop into what it's actually like to be in a specific career path, or how to become qualified to actually enter into the organization that they work for or have worked for previously. You can also learn some relevant information on those current trends in your industry of interest, and especially now in this type of environment where there's a lot of turmoil, there's a lot of change happening all around us. It's more important now, more than ever, to really connect with people in the industries that you're interested in to get a inside look into what some of those changes might be and how you might navigate that, right? And LinkedIn really gives you the opportunity to showcase your personal brand as well. Now, all of these things that you see here on the slide, we're going to do a deep dive into. So how to connect with people, how to find alumni, how to research career paths, find mentors. We're going to get into that. So stay tuned. What we're going to do now is we're going to launch a poll. And what I'd like to ask you all is whether you have a personal brand. So you should see on your screen now a poll for whether you have a personal brand. So I'm going to give you about 20 seconds to go ahead and respond to this poll, and then I'm going to share the results. All right, about 5 more seconds to answer this poll if you haven't already. All right. So as you can see, 2 people answered yes, right? Or 10% answered yes. 48% of people answered no, that they don't have a personal brand. And 43% asked, what's a personal brand? So let's get into that. So essentially what your personal brand is, it's a combination of your image and your reputation. It's what people say about you when you're not in the room, right? And believe it or not, you all already have a personal brand, whether you're aware of it or not, right? It's a representation of you, your abilities, and the value that you bring. And so for those of you who are like, wow, okay, I didn't know I had a personal brand, what are the implications of this? Well, the reality is that you have a specific professional image or an image around you as an individual, right? That is kind of a combination of who you are, your skills, the values that you bring. And that is something that you can be very intentional with and that you can shape. That process of building your personal brand, right, is really critical to, networking and also to job applications. For example, if you are writing a cover letter, right, your cover letter is essentially, when you're applying to a job, an argument for why you should be the one that they want to hire instead of all the other candidates. And in order to make an effective argument, you have to be able to know and articulate what it is that you bring to the table that is unique and of value to that organization. Your personal brand really kind of underpins everything that you do in your professional life, right? It's showcased through your elevator pitch, your resume, your cover letter, your interviews, your LinkedIn profile, and so much more. If you're in an interview and somebody asks you, why should we hire you? This is really going to help you answer that question. Or if they ask you, why, or tell me about some of your greatest strengths, what do you bring to the table? All of these are questions that they could potentially ask you, and really delving into that introspective process of understanding what your personal brand is really the first step to be able to answer some of those questions. And so that process of personal branding is to really identify your personal promise of value and learn how to tell your story. No matter what industry you're going into, no matter what position, right? Storytelling is a really critical skill to be able to talk about who you are, what you represent, and what you bring to the table is something that can't be undervalued, right? So here's some questions that you see on the slide here to really start to get to that core of what your personal brand is. So some questions you can ask yourself, right, are what are the facets of my identity, my intersections, my background, my values, my motivations, what drives me, right? These are some of the things that really kind of give the recruiter insight into who you are as a person. You can also ask, what have I accomplished in my academic and professional life? And this gets to more of kind of the skills and the qualifications, right? And then what are my strengths, right? It's not just talking about your strengths in a concrete sense. I think a lot of us, when we hear strengths, we think about those technical skills, those concrete skills, which are very important, mind you, but you also want to think about some of those softer skills, right? Whether it's like you are particularly exceptionally good at communicating with people from diverse backgrounds, or whether you're really good at being able to analyze a problem and pinpoint multiple solutions. So figuring out what your strengths are and asking yourself, why do people come to me for help, right, is a good way to start to think about what those strengths are. A really good exercise that I can recommend that you do is reach out to 2 people that you're comfortable with. Maybe you can text them, right? And just, you can even say, my career advisor told me to do this, right? To alleviate any awkwardness with the question. But you could even just ask them, if you had to name 2 of my strengths, what would they be and why? And this is a really good way to start to see how other people view you, right? And how other people perceive your strengths and your personal brand. And then lastly, you can ask yourself, what are my aspirations for the future? What can I help others achieve? And this is really, really important, because when you're looking for a job or when you're trying to put your best foot forward, you not only have to know what you bring to the table now, but what you could in the future, right? And so to know that, you need to know what your aspirations are and to get a sense of what direction you might be heading in. All right, so let's talk about some of this nitty-gritty stuff, right? The LinkedIn headline. So I know many of you, many UCLA students, do already have a LinkedIn profile. Now, the big thing is a lot of them don't know how to leverage all of the tools and strategies that are available on this platform. And beyond that, how to represent themselves in an effective way that's going to make them stand out from everybody else, right? And so let's start with the headline, right? That headline is the first thing recruiters see, right? Right under your name, right under your picture. That is the first thing that they see. It really represents your personal brand, and it carries the most weight for visibility. So to give you some insight from the recruiter perspective, right? When recruiters use LinkedIn, they actually use a different side of the platform as a recruiter. And they have very powerful search tools that they actually search keywords in, right? To search for potential candidates that fit those keywords. And so when they do a search on LinkedIn from the recruiter platform, the headline actually carries the most weight in that algorithm, in that search algorithm. And so it's really important to use those keywords that are related to the industry or the function that you're interested in, and to illustrate your value proposition. And so you can see some examples here on the side, right? Under Josie Bruin, we have social media editor, content and digital strategy, creative marketer, helping brands connect with people. So right there, you not only see some of her concrete skill sets and functional areas that she's an expert in, but you also see her value proposition, right? She's a creative marketer who helps brands connect with people. And so this can be really effective because it demonstrates not only those, those keywords that we all want, but specifically the value proposition. Then we have Joe Bruin, graphic designer, motion animator, environment artist. So again, these functions, right, that they're identifying. And Bella Bruin, UCLA computer science student, software engineer, data analyst, Java full stack. So there, when you're looking at some of those technical positions, it could be very effective to include some of those core key skill areas that a lot of these recruiters are looking for. The next most important part of your LinkedIn profile is your summary, right? And just to let you all know, we're not going to go through all the different portions of the LinkedIn profile. We're really just going to focus on the headline and summary and then move into strategies. In terms of the rest of your profile, it's pretty self-explanatory, putting in your experiences and your volunteer and your campus engagements and your accomplishments and things like that are pretty self-explanatory. So when it comes to the summary, it can be a little bit challenging. I think a lot of people struggle to know what to put in there, right? And so what we really recommend is to use this first person narrative approach, the same way you would with a cover letter. Conventions are constantly changing. Even several years ago, when LinkedIn was really kind of on its meteoric rise, it was very conventional for people to write a LinkedIn summary that's like in the third person. It kind of sounds cold and disconnected. However, now it's a lot more conventional to be able to tell your story in a narrative flow, right? And so don't be afraid to reflect your values, your motivations, your personality, and your mission. You want it to be more personal, right? Because it is still a social media networking site, even though it is a professional site. And you also want to touch on some of those talents, those skills, those qualifications that you have that are both concrete and transferable skills. Transferable skills are those skills, where maybe you don't have exact experience in the industry you're trying to get into, but you've had jobs or internships, or you were in a leadership position on campus at a student org that really helped you develop skills that are relevant to the types of positions you want to apply for. I can't emphasize enough how important those transferable skills are. On the surface, a lot of the time, I think people struggle to see a connection between the experience that they have and the types of opportunities that they want to apply for. And where that bridge really lies is in those transferable skills. To learn more about that, check out our Resume and Cover Letter 101 workshops. The next one is on April 20th. You can check it out on Handshake. In your summary, you really want to share those metrics, those successes, and those accomplishments in a tangible way if possible. And you also want to make that summary keyword rich the same way that you would with your headline, right? And then lastly, you really want to be authentic and use your true voice. I think there's something really special about being able to do that. It's going to enable the reader to get a better sense of who you are as an individual, right? A lot of people don't realize, but from a recruiter standpoint, right? When you apply to a job, right? When people apply to a single job that I as a recruiter have posted, there could be hundreds of qualified applicants. And after a while, it becomes really difficult to discern between those qualified candidates, right? And it becomes really difficult to choose, who do I interview? Who do I bring in? And so what they really turn to then is to look at some of those more intangible things, who you are, your personality, your values, your motivations, your passions, your interests. They really try to get a sense of who you are, how you think, how you approach and solve problems, and how you tick, right? And all of that can come through the way that you communicate in your LinkedIn summary. And so here are some examples here, right? As you can see from the one on top, this one comes from more of a marketing type professional, right? Every brand has a story to tell. Stories that will not only engage, inform, surprise, delight, and impact their audience, but will also deliver on measurable business goals. And I am that conduit between brand and consumer. Right away, you can see how this person is drawing that link between what they do, what they stand for as a professional, and the tangible values that they bring to the table, right? The value they bring to an organization. And they go on to then solidify that statement or that notion by saying that they help clients find subjects and mediums that best fit their unique identity, right? And produce high quality content to meet objectives. And then you'll also see it is very conventional for people to put kind of a bulleted list of some of those core concrete skills. This is a really good way to very overtly indicate here are my concrete skills and technical skills, but also to get some of those keywords in that we talked about, right? And at the bottom, you can see an example from a math and bio double major, right? Somebody who's still a student, and maybe they don't quite know what direction that they're heading in, but you can still articulate, some of the areas of interest you have. Trust me, no one's going to hold you to this permanently. If you decide that you want to switch gears later, that's totally okay, right? But even if you don't know exactly what you want to get into in terms of the industry or the functional area of your interest, don't be afraid to make a really compelling summary and list some of those areas that you do have an interest in. All right, so we're going to launch our second poll here. And the question is, how have you used LinkedIn? So I want to get a sense of how you all have used LinkedIn if you have one. And I think this will give us some really good insight into what your peers are doing, right? And hopefully it'll help inform some of the things that we're going to talk about in a second here. So I'm going to give everybody about 10 more seconds to respond to this poll, and then we're going to share the results with everyone, all right? All right, we're gonna give about 5 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. All right, so let's go ahead and share those results. And as you can see, the majority of you have used LinkedIn to build your profile, which is great. That is base level. I got that done and out of the way. But a lot of the questions I get from students is like, what can I do with it after I've built my profile? And that is what we're really gonna get into in a second, okay? All right. So the first thing that you can do on LinkedIn and really leverage is to conduct informational interviews with alumni and professionals in your industry. I'm going to talk a little bit more in a second about how do I find those people? How do I reach out to them? What do I say? So hang tight there. But let's talk about what informational interviews are, because I think some people might not know, right? So informational interview is just a fancy term for an informal conversation that you can have with a professional working in a career that really interests you, or in careers that you want to learn a little bit more about. It's a really, really fantastic way to kind of test run different careers and ask some questions to get some insight into what it's actually like to be in these careers, right? Because I think sometimes our perception of what a career entails and what the lived experience is like can be quite different from what it actually is. And so, conducting informational interviews with professionals who are currently in those fields is a really great way to get insight. In terms of the formats, it can really vary. It's up to you, right? Whether it's phone or video chat. Hopefully things get back to normal soon and you can do it in person. Maybe it's even better because now you can start a conversation virtually, but then follow up later with an in-person meeting. And you can really use this time to evaluate the compatibility of these careers, right, that you're considering with your interests, your values, your personality, your skills, and your lifestyle, right? I think it's really important to do that introspective piece. What research has shown us, right, when it comes to career and life satisfaction and satisfaction within career, is that people are happiest when they're in a career that is at the intersection of their interest, value, personality, skills, and lifestyle. Seems really obvious, but a lot of the time when we're thinking about and evaluating careers that are potential options for us, we don't really consider how those things intersect in a really concrete or intentional way. And so this is a good step to start that process. You can learn about these different career and educational trajectories and the lived experiences of these professionals, right? Even within any given career, your lived experience can be radically different than somebody else, right, who is in the same type of position. So just to give you an example, I have now worked at 3 different institutions. Obviously, I work at UCLA now. I've worked at CSU Dominguez Hills, which is a medium-sized CSU, and I've worked at Loyola Marymount University at their career center as well, which is a small private institution. My lived experience at each of these institutions, even though my role was almost identical, has been radically different. Based on the environment, the people around me, the culture, right? And so it's really important to conduct these informational interviews because it can give you some of that insight. So let's talk about how to actually connect with alumni and professionals, right? You really can leverage LinkedIn and UCLA One to do both of these things, right? So when asking for informational interviews, right, it's a pretty straightforward process. I know it's a little bit intimidating. You're like, this is weird. I'm reaching out to people that I've never met before. How do I know they're even going to respond to me? Well, the reality is you don't. But remember this, you have nothing to lose and everything to gain, right? And I can tell you from my personal and anecdotal experience with the students that I've worked with, and I've worked with thousands, right, is the ones who actually go through this process and really push and make things, you know, like be very intentional with the informational interviewing process, they tend to succeed in their objectives a lot faster because they're learning about the insights and trends that are relevant to their industry, and they're building relationships with people who could be key decision makers in the hiring process, right? And so it's really important to do so. In terms of the nitty gritty of like, what do I say? It's all right here in front of you, right? You introduce yourself and how you found them, and really emphasize that you're looking for information and not a job, because of course you don't want it to be like icky and transactional. You want it to be real, a genuine relationship that you build, right? And then you can ask for a convenient time to have a 20 to 30-minute virtual conversation. All right, so there's a template here that you see on the screen. It's just an example. And of course, for those of you who have just tuned in, I want to let you know that there is a survey that you can take that you can find in the chat. And if you just fill it out real quick, we are going to email you all the slides so that you can have access to them afterward, and you'll be entered to win a $25 Amazon gift card. So let's talk about how do I actually find alumni on LinkedIn. So let me go ahead and share my screen for my browser. So as you can see, this is my LinkedIn profile. I'm gonna blow it up a little so you all can see it better. So this is my profile. As you can see, I have my headline here, and I have my little about section, my summary, right? And my professional skill sets listed, which are all keywords that are relevant to my industry. Now, how do I find alumni? It's a very, very simple process. You simply go to the search bar, you type in UCLA, and you find our university's LinkedIn page, okay? Our university's LinkedIn page has a little menu on the side, and you can select alumni, and you have access to almost 430,000 alums, okay? It's a very powerful tool. Not only can you see these macro filters of where they live, where they work, what they do, what they studied, right, and what they're skilled at, you can do specific keyword searches, and you can even filter by graduating year. So for example, let's say you're, you know, a student who you're like, you know, I am in a major that is really versatile, and I actually have no idea what people in my major end up doing, right? I think a good example of that might be like history. I get a lot of history students who are like, I don't know what to do. So I'm using them as an example. Shout out to any history majors in the house. So as you can see here, when I select that filter, it's automatically going to reduce the number of alumni that you see here, right, to 15,000. And you can see this macro snapshot of where they work, as well as what they do. And so I want to emphasize something here, right? I want to emphasize that it's important not only to look at where they work, but also what they do. I think a lot of people would assume, right, a lot of history majors might be in education, because as you can see, the majority of them that you see here are like UCLA or LA Unified. However, the function that they have, the role that they have, the position they have is actually in business development, right? And so start to pay attention to those little nuances and check it out. 36 of them are at Google. So if we were to select Google, right, and we scroll down, we can see all of the alumni who graduated from UCLA with a history major that work at Google. Again, this is such a powerful tool because it can really allow you to get access to all these alumni, right? For some of you who haven't fully fleshed out your LinkedIn profile yet, some of this profile information of alumni, right, the photos, their names might be grayed out. And I don't want you to panic, that's okay. You just have to fill out your profile a little bit more and connect with more people in the UCLA ecosystem. This is just LinkedIn's way to protect people, right? To make sure that you're a real person in the UCLA community. So make sure you fill out your profile all the way, start connecting with people, your peers. You can connect with me, connect with your professors, right? And you'll be able to start seeing all of this information in its entirety. And so say I'm like, okay, I'm super curious to see a couple of these different profiles, right? So let's check them out. So Vic Alonso, staffing lead at Google. So he is in talent acquisition and recruitment, which is under human resources as a broader umbrella, right? You can see not only where he is now, but where he started. And that is so helpful to people, right? Because it's not only like you want to do research on where people are now, you want to see how they got there, right? And LinkedIn is so great because the more that you do this, the more that you start benchmarking and seeing where people started from, you'll quickly realize there is no one right way to get to a goal, right? But you will start to see common paths, common trajectories, and it can really help inform the decisions that you make when you're doing career exploration or trying to figure out what your next move is. And so I can't emphasize enough how powerful this is. Just keep utilizing it, keep looking at all these profiles, check out what people are doing, right? And another great reason that this is helpful is that if you're having trouble with your headline or your summary, you can take a look at what some of the headlines and summaries of people in your industry are, right? And use that to help inform the way that you craft yours. So not only can you see where people started in terms of a professional, in a professional sense, you can also see their educational trajectory, right? And you can start to see and benchmark, do I need an advanced degree for this, right? Because I think that's another really important question that a lot of UCLA students have is, you know, if I go into this career, am I going to have to pay for more education? And it's a valid question, right? You want to be informed of whether or not you do need an advanced degree. Sometimes it's just helpful and other times it's required. And you kind of have to figure that out, and you can do so using LinkedIn to really look at the evidence, right? All right. So let's get back to the presentation here. I'm going to pause here real quick and just see if anybody has any questions about how to find alumni through LinkedIn. If you have a question, throw it into the Q&A. All right. So let's continue. Some questions you can ask during an informational interview, right? I mean, really, once you kind of establish a basic relationship with somebody, you know, and tell them a little bit more about yourself so they feel more comfortable with you. Oh, sorry about that. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right screen. There we go. Yeah, it's been a long day, folks. So some questions that you can ask, right? Anything from, can you tell me about what a typical day looks like? How'd you get started in your career? You know, what do you find the most exciting about your job? What are some unexpected challenges that you wish that somebody would have warned you about? You know, like, you know, here, you know, some about my qualifications and my background. You know, what are some things I can be doing now to get to where you are? All of these questions can really give you insight into, you know, your plan, your strategies of moving forward, right? And it can also help you develop a relationship with some of these people. Especially now, I think some of the questions that could be particularly relevant are around the trends and developments that they see in their industry, especially with the changes that are happening in light of COVID-19, right? And I think it's really important to stay aware of and realistic about some of these changes. And so who better to ask than somebody who's actually in this profession or in this industry now, right? And another great thing about doing an informational interview is that it's just another way to find more connections, right? And to get more information. And so one of the last things you can ask them is, you know, if you wouldn't mind, you know, could you actually connect me with maybe one or two of your colleagues that you think I would benefit from speaking with? You know, I really enjoyed this conversation. I learned so much, but, you know, I'm still trying to discern what I want my career path to look like. And I just want to talk to more people. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. You know, it can be really powerful. And I think there's not really any question that is technically like off limits, but it's not just about what you ask. I think it's about how you ask it, right? And so always just being tactful and using your interpersonal communication skills to really build this relationship will be helpful. Another tip I like to give people about informational interviews, as not to be nervous, is to remember that it's a conversation, right? And a conversation is a two-way street. And, you know, just remember that this is somebody who was once in your shoes, right? So there's no reason to be intimidated. There's no reason to feel like, you know, awkward about it. Just remember that it's a conversation. You're just talking to a person, right? All right. So the other strategy on LinkedIn that's going to be really, really impactful for you all, especially during this time, is to increase your visibility. You can do this in a couple of different ways, right? You can identify some of the influencers and industry leaders that are in your area of interest, right? So who are they? You know, the directors, the VPs, but also the recruiters, right? The talent acquisition specialists, the people who are making these hiring decisions are the ones that you want to be following and keeping tabs on, right? And I can tell you this from personal experience. Recruiters love to post tips and resources that give you valuable insight into the hiring process and requirements. So like all the time, like, you know, if you really want to work at Riot Games, you know, and you start following some of the recruiters at Riot Games, they're constantly posting stuff like 5 tips on how to get hired at Riot Games. You know, it happens all the time because it's their job to act as the conduit from talent pool to the organization. And you also want to curate and share content that you find helpful to increase your visibility and help others, right? And it's really overall going to, you know, positively impact your digital footprint and your visibility through these social networking platforms, right? Like LinkedIn, as well as UCLA One. So I think, you know, finding some of these industry leaders is going to be really helpful. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to find them, right? Because we talked about alumni and we know how to find alumni through the UCLA page, but sometimes we don't know whether or not alumni work at a certain organization. Let's see, we got a question here. Would you recommend following recruiters or adding them as a connection? Great question. So, you know, following recruiters, absolutely, because what following does is it basically informs you on your feed every time that they post. And most of the time they're posting something useful, right? Whether it's a new opening or tips and resources. Adding them as a connection can sometimes be tricky, right? Because recruiters get so many connection requests, they may not respond to a connection request. However, there is a strategic way to use the ability to ask for a connection request when you're looking for a job. And we're actually going to get to that in a moment. All right. So first, let me address this. Let's take a look at how to find recruiters. Okay. So we're going to go back to our LinkedIn page here. So there's 2 keywords that you have to keep in mind here. Okay. Recruiter, talent acquisition. Recruiter, talent acquisition. All right. Also, for those of you who are tuning in now and filled out that survey, right, in addition to receiving the slides, you're also going to get some LinkedIn tip sheets, and it's going to have all of this information on there, okay? So let's try recruiter. All right. So when you search for recruiter in the search bar, you can actually filter. So there's like, you want to look at people, obviously, right? And what you could do is you could filter by location, because obviously there's different recruiters for, it might be a multi, you know, it might be a company with multiple locations nationally, but they're going to have recruiters for different regions. So you can filter by location and companies. So say I'm like, I really want to see some recruiters who work at Google, right? You can actually filter for Google, right? And then you can filter by location. So if I'm looking in the Bay Area and you click apply, and right there, automatically you get a list of all of the recruiters who are currently working at Google. And you can see right? They have specific titles. So Sarah Williams here is a technical recruiter. So if you were applying for a technical position, this may be the person that you want to follow. This person specifically recruits for data science, right? This person's a generalist. So here's another tip to just keep in mind. Sometimes when you look up recruiters, right, at an organization, you're going to see a lot of them, especially at such a large organization such as Google. In that case, right, you can follow as many as you'd like, but when it comes to connection requests, you want to be really discerning and just maybe send out 1 or 2 connection requests max. Now, in what situation would you want to send out a connection request? Great question. We're going to get to that. All right. So the way that you would really leverage the connection requests with recruiters and talent acquisition specialists is in a very specific situation, right? What I recommend is that you use that ability when you've already applied to a position. Now, the reason I recommend this is because, again, recruiters get so many connection requests that yours might just get lost, right? However, if you've applied to a job and you want to get noticed, right, from the crowd of hundreds, maybe thousands of applicants, this is just one more thing that you have control over that you can do, right? You can connect with them, right, and then add a note. And so anytime you click connect to connect with somebody on LinkedIn, you have the option to add a note. I would always, always, always add a note. If you're reaching out to an alumni, add a note to just say something like, hi, I came across your profile on the alumni page. I thought it was really inspiring. I'd like to connect, right? It just gives them a reason to say yes and connect with you instead of like seeing like a whole list of like random people trying to connect with them that they don't know. Always include a note, right? With recruiters, right, there's a specific strategy you want to use. So say I just applied to a publicity coordinator position. Here are some of the things I might want to say in that connection request. Hi, I just applied to the open position for publicity coordinator. I'm enthusiastic about this opportunity because I have 2 years experience working in PR with Warner Brothers. Please let me know if you can find a time to connect. I'd love to see if this is a good fit for us both. So there's a couple of things going on in there, right? That first sentence is going to catch their attention. It's not a, you know, I want to connect with you to learn more. It's a, I'm connecting with you because I've already applied. And especially if it's an open position that they are recruiting for, they're going to want to see it, right? They're going to want to connect with you. And so that second sentence that you see there, I'm enthusiastic because I have 2 years experience already. You're capturing their attention by letting them know, hey, I already have some expertise in this area. And then lastly, you know, I'd love to connect and see if this is a good fit for us both. That word fit is actually a word that is used a lot in recruiting and talent acquisition. And it's like kind of one of those buzzwords, but it's something that they look for, right? Is that fit between the organization and the candidate. And so this is just an example of how you might craft a note when reaching out to a recruiter. Now, some of you might be wondering, you know, why would I reach out to a recruiter after I've already applied and not before? The reason is that some companies, actually a lot of them, have restrictions on, you know, recruiters speaking with candidates before they've applied, right? And the reason is that it could create a potential conflict of interest. Now, this is different than, say, if you were going to a virtual career fair or an information session with employers who are there to educate you on those opportunities, because they are putting themselves out there to network and to you know, potentially scout talent. It's a little bit different than you reaching out to them, right? And so when you reach out to an employer, you just want to keep that in mind. Some employers cannot connect with you or discuss, you know, a position opening unless you've already applied, right? So that's just something to know. Some other things to really increase your chances of getting hired is to update your job preferences on your profile to show recruiters that you're looking for opportunities. This is really, really critical, right? Again, recruiters have a different type of platform for LinkedIn. And so when they use the keyword search to look for specific keywords and scout talent, they're going to see your job preferences, right? So you can indicate, for example, that you're looking for opportunities. I'm going to show you what that looks like in a second. And then you also want to utilize the job board. The job board on LinkedIn is incredibly robust, right? And so using LinkedIn's job board, in addition to the job board on Handshake, right, which is specific to UCLA students, is going to really help positively impact the number of opportunities that you have access to. And then you can also set job alerts, which is super helpful, right? You can do this both on LinkedIn and Handshake. You can set job alerts to send you updates on available positions that fit the criteria that you set. All right, so let's take a look real quick back at LinkedIn, right? And take a look at what those job preferences looks like. So on your profile, right, if you scroll down right here, show recruiters you're open to job opportunities. These are your job preferences. So if you click get started, you're going to see all this information. So here's some, you can add job titles that you're interested in, the locations, whether you're interested in full-time contract or remote work, right? And you can actually set this so that only recruiters see it or all LinkedIn members see it. If you are open, right, to and openly looking for an opportunity, I suggest that you just throw it out there to the whole world, right? All LinkedIn members, because you never know who's going to see your profile. The job board is also incredibly helpful because obviously you can use keyword searches, right? But there's also some suggested job searches, and then here are those job alerts that I was referring to. So you can, oh yes, so you can turn on your job alerts and get recommendations. LinkedIn will notify you of jobs after you've done specific keyword searches. So say I did, career counselor, right? And then I did Los Angeles metropolitan area. What I could do then after that search is I just make sure that this job alert is on, right? And you can set job alerts for specific filters that you set for yourself. All right. And so lastly, I think what's really important to remember, it's not just about building your network and increasing your network, but maintaining it, right? Deepening the relationships that you start. I think this is the part that people sometimes struggle with, right? I get a lot of questions from students of like, okay, so I did a couple of informational interviews, like, how do I maintain this relationship? Like, how do I keep connecting with them, right? And I think it's a really valid question. You can really reflect on what's unique to you. There's no one right way to do it, but reflect on how you maintain relationships with the people in your life, right? I think some really good strategies are to schedule regular check-ins, right? And that can be done in a variety of ways. Like you could send them an email with an article and say, hey, I came across this article. It reminded me of our last conversation. Here are some interesting things that I saw in it. Happy reading. Hope you're doing okay. I'd love to connect again soon if you have time to get an update on how you're doing. And you can, share resources, share information, tell them how you're doing, right? They'll have an invested, they'll be invested in you as well. And so, stay in touch, keep track of the people that you do informational interviews with. The reality is that you're not going to like click with every single person you do an informational interview with, like that's just not possible. At the very least, you're getting great info and great insider scoops on, relevant trends and things like that. But every once in a while, you're going to come across somebody who you really have a connection with, whether that's because you have a shared interest or a shared background. Maybe they were in the same student org as you when they were in school, right? You just never know what things you might have in common with somebody, and those commonalities can help really deepen that relationship, right? And I think it's really important to also just show your gratitude, right? And just really let it be known that how grateful you are for the information and the time that they've provided. I think that can be really impactful as well. And of course, give back whenever possible, right? I think a lot of the professionals that I have in my network, right? Whether they're in higher education or in any other industry, a lot of them are recruiters themselves. They love mentoring. They love mentoring because it helps them keep a pulse on the upcoming talent, right? And so don't feel intimidated to reach out. Like I said, you have everything to gain and nothing to lose. So really just put yourself out there. It's going to be really helpful to you in the long run. So really quick, I want to highlight some things for you all, right? For those of you who have stuck around since the first presentation, this is a little bit of a recap, but I want you all to know that employers are adapting, right? So this information, these statistics are based on the April 2020 recruitment trends survey that Handshake put out to hundreds and thousands of employers, right? They are really shifting to virtual channels to be able to continue engaging with students on Handshake. They want to continue to keep those talent pipelines open. And so I think it's really important to know that and not become discouraged. 89% of employers adopting virtual interviews, 73%, phone screens, 59% are adopting digital engagement, right, like virtual events. And then 80% of students who share their job type, role, and location preferences on Handshake get a proactive message from an employer on Handshake about an opportunity. So fill out your profile, not just on LinkedIn, but on Handshake. The good news is they look very similar, so you can really just kind of copy and paste that information over if you have one of those filled out and need to fill out the other. Some quick tips for you through these changes, right? Really get on Handshake. I can't say this enough. Handshakes are one-stop shop, right? It's where all of our job and internship postings are. There's anywhere from 13,000 to 15,000 job and internship postings at any given time that are live, right? The employers that recruit through Handshake, they specifically want UCLA students. You know, that's why they've gone out of their way to make an account through Handshake. And so that's where there's a bit of an advantage as opposed to LinkedIn, where it's open to the entire public. But the thing is, of course, you know, websites like LinkedIn and Glassdoor and Indeed have more opportunities because they are open to the public. LinkedIn and UCLA One, you know, we talked about that today. Really connect with people. Candor. Candor.co is an amazing resource to take a look at a live updated list of what companies are hiring, which have hiring freezes, and which are, you know, have actually rescinded offers or had layoffs. It'll also have a list of industries underneath that Airtable list that are hardest hit. And so you can see which industries are, you know, suffering the most. And it's just to help inform your next steps, right? And it can inform what you ask about during an informational interview. I say be prepared at all times, right? You never know when an opportunity is going to come your way. So have your resume and cover letter ready to go. Obviously, you're going to have to do a little bit of tailoring for every position you apply for, especially if you're invested in that position. Like you really want it, then you have to tailor it and put a lot of effort in. However, just having the baseline stuff ready to go can help you just reduce the time that you spend on that, right? And really practice your interviews starting now. There's a lot of overlap between interviewing and networking, right? So when you get into an interview, the first question they're going to ask you is, tell me about yourself, right? And so all the stuff we've talked about today about personal branding, about knowing what you bring to the table, is really going to help you answer that question. Develop those concrete and transferable skills now, right? You have free access to LinkedIn Learning and Lynda through the Los Angeles Public Library if you are a resident of Los Angeles County, right? So you can go to the LA Public Library website and get an e-media card in like a minute, right? You'll then receive a postcard. You have to fill out the postcard and send it back in order to keep your account. But through there, you can access LinkedIn Learning and all of the different courses. There's soft skill courses like communication and things like that, but there's also like project management. There's like learning Adobe Creative Suite. There's all sorts of stuff in there. Check it out. And then lastly, just be agile, right? Flexible, patient, adaptable, compassionate. This is a tough time, right? So be easy on others, be easy on yourself, all right? I just want to highlight that we still have all of our resources at the Career Center available to you all through virtual means, okay? So you can schedule a 30-minute one-on-one consultation with a career advisor, including myself, Monday through Friday, all right? Check out availabilities through Handshake, right? We're gonna send you these slides as long as you fill out that survey. And then you can use the hyperlinks in here to access all of our services. You can also visit our website as well, and you'll have access to everything through there. We also have drop-ins, right? 15-minute quick questions where you can just tune in, get a quick resume review, and pop back out. So those are super handy. Employers are still engaging, like I mentioned, right? So they're doing information sessions to connect with students. They're also doing on-campus interviews, which are tied to specific job and internship postings through Handshake. All of our articles and digital resources are also available through our website and through Handshake, so check those out. Here are some of them that you see here. All right. In particular, I think Vault is one of my favorite. There's over 120 industry-specific career guides, and they're super handy. They have so much information about the required experience, salary information, education requirements. Like, it's got a bunch of stuff, so make sure you take a look at that. So I want to take this time now to answer some questions before we get into our next section, and I'm taking a look at the Q&A now. If any of you have questions, pop them in there, and I'll answer them live. So somebody asked, if we graduate in June, till what time would we have access to Handshake? That's a fantastic question. So if you graduate this coming June, you have 3 months of full access to everything the Career Center offers as if you were still a student, okay? After that 3 months, those 3 months end, you then have a full year of access to all the resources in Handshake, including job and internship board and online resources and career fairs. All right, so do we have any more questions? Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for having me. We're going to take a quick little 5-minute break, and then my colleague is going to come on, and we're going to move into the next portion of our job and internship search crash course, which is focused on interviewing strategies. So stay tuned, and I appreciate all of your engagement. Thank you so much.